Rebecca Torres was working late again, but this time it wasn't by choice. Ever since Vincent Chun's testimony had gone public 3 weeks ago, the Deep Space Research Center had become the most watched place on Earth. Protesters gathered outside. Every day, some demanding justice for the murdered aliens, others calling the whole story a hoax designed to weaken human space expansion. The world had split into two camps almost overnight. Those who believed the evidence were horrified and ashamed. Those who didn't believe it claimed the alien signals, archaeological findings, classified files, and eyewitness testimony were all part of an elaborate conspiracy. Rebecca was exhausted. From endless interviews with reporters, government officials, and angry citizens who wanted someone to blame for humanity's darkest secrets. But she kept working because she felt responsible for starting this global crisis by discovering that first alien warning signal. At 2 a.m., her computer chimed with an incoming transmission. Rebecca assumed it was another message from a colleague or journalist, but when she looked at her screen, her heart stopped. The signal pattern was identical to the original Zephyrian warning she had discovered months ago. But this wasn't a recorded message from the past. This was happening in real time. Rebecca's hands shook as she activated the translation protocols. The message was coming through clearly, much stronger than the original signal. Whoever was sending, it had more powerful equipment and wanted to make sure humans received it. The first translated words made Rebecca feel dizzy. "People of the Third World, we know you are listening." She immediately called Dr. Park, Antonio, and Diana Rodriguez. Within an hour, they were all gathered in the lab, watching as the alien message continued to arrive. "We are the Galactic Preservation Council," the message continued. "We represent 47 species who have survived contact with your kind. We have been watching your world since your people began traveling between the stars." Dr. Park was recording everything while Rebecca worked on the translation. "This is unprecedented," she whispered. "They're talking directly to us." The message explained that the council had been formed after the first reports of human genocide reached other alien civilizations. Species throughout the galaxy had shared information about human behavior and concluded that Earth represented an existential threat to all intelligent life. "Your species follows a pattern," the alien message said. "You appear peaceful and friendly during first contact. You offer cooperation and mutual benefit. Then you gather intelligence about our capabilities and resources. Finally, you eliminate us completely and steal everything we have built." Antonio was reading the translation with growing dread. They know exactly how the Clean Slate Protocol works. The message continued with devastating accuracy, describing human tactics that matched the classified military files perfectly. The aliens knew about the deception phases, the systematic mapping of settlements, and the complete erasure of evidence. "We have documented proof of your crimes against the Zephyrians, Viridians, Crystallins, and 16 other species your people have destroyed. Each time you followed the same pattern. Each time you left no survivors to tell their story." Rebecca felt sick. There had been 19 alien genocides, not just the 3 they knew about. Somewhere in classified files they hadn't found yet, there was evidence of 16 more destroyed civilizations. "But something has changed," the message said. "Some of your own people have begun telling the truth about these crimes. We have intercepted your communications and know that humans called Rebecca Torres, Antonio Rivera, Diana Rodriguez, and Vincent Chun have revealed evidence of your species' actions." Rebecca gasped. They knew her name. The aliens had been monitoring human communications and watching the story unfold. "This presents us with an unprecedented situation," the message continued. "For the first time in your species' expansion into space, some humans have shown remorse for your crimes. Some humans have chosen truth over secrecy." Dr. Park looked up from her recording equipment. "Are they saying what I think they're saying?" The message answered her question directly. "We face a decision that will determine the future of both your species and ours. Do we treat all humans as the genocidal threat your actions have proven you to be? Or do we believe that your species is capable of change?" Rebecca's translation software was working faster now, as if the aliens were deliberately making their message easier to understand. "We have the power to end your threat permanently," the message said with chilling simplicity. "Our combined fleets could sterilize your world before your military could respond. Many council members believe this is the only way to protect innocent species from future human expansion." Antonio stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Millions of people were sleeping peacefully, unaware that aliens were debating whether to destroy Earth. However, the message continued, a few council members argue that the humans who revealed these crimes deserve a chance to prove their species can change. They point to your Rebecca Torres, who could have hidden her discovery but chose to investigate. Further, they mention your Antonio Rivera, who could have covered up the archaeological evidence but chose to document it completely. Rebecca felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. The survival of humanity might depend on the choices she and her colleagues had made. They speak of your Diana Rodriguez, who risked her freedom to reveal classified files that exposed your military's crimes. And they honor your Vincent Chun, who carried guilt for decades before choosing to tell the truth about what he witnessed. The message paused, and Rebecca could almost feel the aliens waiting for their words to sink in. "So we offer your species something we have never offered before. One chance to prove that humans can coexist peacefully with other intelligent life." Dr. Park was frantically taking notes as Rebecca continued translating. "Here are our terms," the message said. "Your government must officially acknowledge the genocide of all species killed during your expansion. You must make reparations to the families of victims who escaped your attacks. You must permanently abandon the Clean Slate Protocol and any similar policies." Rebecca was typing as fast as she could, trying to keep up with the incoming message. "Most importantly, you must establish a new organization dedicated to peaceful first contact with alien species. This organization must be led by humans who have proven they value truth over secrecy, justice over profit." Antonio turned around from the window. "They want us to lead a new first contact program?" The message seemed to anticipate his question. "We specifically request that Rebecca Torres, Antonio Rivera, Diana Rodriguez, and Vincent Chin become the founding leaders of this new organization. They have proven they can be trusted to tell the truth even when that truth is painful." Rebecca felt overwhelmed. They were asking her to help rebuild humanity's relationship with the galaxy based on honesty instead of deception. "If your species accepts these terms and proves over the next 10 Earth years that you have truly changed, we will consider peaceful contact with individual council member species. If you reject these terms or fail to honor them, we will take defensive action to protect ourselves." Dr. Park looked up from her notes. "What kind of defensive action?" The message answered immediately. "Complete isolation of your solar system. We will prevent any human ships from leaving your star system, and we will destroy any human colonies that currently exist beyond Earth. Your species will be confined to your homeworld until you are no longer a threat to others." The implications were staggering. If humanity rejected the aliens' offer or failed to prove they had changed, Earth would become a prison planet surrounded by an invisible alien blockade. "You have 30 Earth days to provide your answer," the message continued. "Broadcast your response on the same frequency as this transmission. The entire Galactic Council will be listening." Rebecca was still translating when the message took an unexpected personal turn. "Rebecca Torres, your discovery of the Zephyrian warning signal began a chain of events that may save both your species and ours. You could have ignored the signal, or hidden your findings. Instead, you chose to seek the truth." Rebecca started crying as she read the words appearing on her screen. "Your courage has given your entire species a chance at redemption. Whether humanity takes that chance is now up to all of you." The message ended with coordinates for the response broadcast and a final warning: "Remember that we will be watching. The next time humans encounter alien life, we will know immediately whether you have truly changed, or if this was just another deception." The transmission stopped, leaving the 4 humans sitting in stunned silence. Rebecca was the first to speak. "There Giving us a chance, she said quietly. After everything we've done, they're actually giving us a chance to prove we can be better. Diana looked around the room at her colleagues. The question is, will the rest of humanity take it? Over the next 30 days, the world watched as governments, military leaders, and ordinary citizens debated humanity's response to the alien ultimatum. Some wanted to reject the terms and prepare for war. Others demanded immediate acceptance and the complete restructuring of human space policy. Vincent Chun had been living in a small cabin in the Montana mountains for 37 years. Most people in the nearby town thought he was just another old veteran who wanted to be left alone. They had no idea that he woke up screaming most nights, reliving memories that officially never happened. When the news broke about the classified files Diana Rodriguez had leaked, Vincent's quiet life came crashing down. He was sitting in his favorite diner, drinking coffee and reading the morning paper when he saw the headline, "Military Files Reveal Alien Genocide in Deep Space Mining Operations." His hands started shaking so badly he couldn't hold the newspaper. The waitress, Betty, came over with a worried look on her face. "You okay, Vince? You look like you've seen a ghost." Vincent tried to smile, but it came out wrong. "It's just remembered. Something I'd rather forget," he said that evening. Vincent sat on his porch watching the sunset and thinking about things he hadn't talked about in decades. He had sworn to never tell anyone about Project Silent Reach, but now that the truth was coming out anyway, maybe it was time to stop carrying the burden alone. He called the number listed in the news article for Dr. Park's research team. When Rebecca answered, Vincent's voice was barely a whisper. "My name is Vincent Chun. I was part of Project Silent Reach. I think you need to hear my story." 3 days later, Vincent was sitting across from Rebecca Antonio and Dr. Park in the same conference room where Diana had revealed the classified files. He looked older than his 68 years, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. That spoke of too many sleepless nights. "I was 24 when they recruited me for Silent Reach," Vincent began. "Fresh out of Space Marine training, top of my class in alien biology and xenopsychology. They told me I was being selected for a special assignment that would make history." Vincent paused and took a sip of water. His hands were still shaking slightly. "The training was unlike anything I'd experienced. For 6 months, we studied theoretical alien contact scenarios. We learned about diplomacy, cultural exchange, and peaceful coexistence. I thought I was being prepared to be humanity's first ambassador to alien species." Rebecca was taking notes, but she could barely concentrate on writing. She was watching Vincent's face as he spoke, seeing the pain in his eyes. The deception didn't end until we were already in space, halfway to the Silent Reach system. That's when Colonel Morrison gathered the team and explained our real mission. Vincent's voice got quieter as he continued. He showed us files about something called the Clean Slate Protocol. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. The colonel was talking about eliminating alien threats, but we were supposed to be on a peaceful exploration mission. Antonio leaned forward. "What was your reaction when you learned the truth?" "I was sick to my stomach," Vincent replied. "Several of us were." A Marine named Tommy Rodriguez actually stood up and said he wouldn't participate in genocide. The colonel had him sedated and locked in his quarters for the rest of the journey. Vincent described how the team had been split into different units. Once they reached the Silent Reach system, the diplomatic unit, which included Vincent, was responsible for making first contact with the aliens and gathering intelligence. The tactical unit remained hidden, preparing for the eventual attack. "The Viridians were nothing like what I expected aliens to be," Vincent said, his voice becoming softer. "They were botanical scientists, like Dr. Rivera mentioned in the files. But they were also artists, philosophers, and incredibly gentle beings." Vincent closed his eyes, remembering. "They lived in these beautiful garden asteroids with plants and flowers I'd never seen before. When we first arrived, they welcomed us with a ceremony where they gave us seeds from their most precious plants. They said it was their way of sharing life itself." Rebecca felt her throat tighten. "How long did you spend with them before the Attack? 8 weeks, Vincent replied immediately. 8 weeks of the most incredible cultural exchange in human history. They taught us about botanical science that was centuries ahead of anything on Earth. We shared meals together, learned their language, and even participated in their religious ceremonies. Vincent opened his eyes and looked directly at Dr. Park. Do you know what their religion was based on? The belief that all life in the universe is connected. They thought meeting humans was proof that their faith was correct. Dr. Park had to look away. The irony was too painful. I became close friends with a Viridian scientist named, well, the closest translation of his name would be Gentleroot. He was fascinated by human biology and wanted to learn everything about Earth plants. He spent hours showing me their botanical gardens and explaining how they had cultivated life in the vacuum of space. Vincent's voice started to crack. Gentleroot had a family. His mate was an artist who created these incredible living sculptures using modified plants. Their offspring were just beginning their education in botanical science. They were so excited about the future, about all the things humans and Viridians could discover together. Rebecca had stopped taking notes. She was just listening, feeling the weight of every word. The night before the attack, Gentleroot gave me a gift. It was a small plant he had bred specifically for me. He said it would bloom in Earth's atmosphere, and would always remind me of the friendship between our species. Vincent reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small dried flower. Even after all these years, it still had hints of unusual colors that seemed to shift in the light. I still carry it with me, he whispered. It's all that's left of their entire civilization, Antonio broke the silence. How did the attack happen? Vincent put the flower back in his pocket and straightened up. When he spoke again, his voice was stronger, but filled with anger. Colonel Morrison told us the Viridians had been classified as a threat to human expansion. He said their botanical knowledge could be weaponized against Earth. It was complete nonsense, but it was the official justification for clean slate protocol. Vincent described how the tactical team had spent the 8 weeks mapping all Viridian settlements and identifying their food distribution systems. The attack wasn't going to be a direct assault. It was going to be biological warfare. They poisoned the water supply that fed all the botanical gardens, Vincent said. The Viridians didn't even realize they were under attack at first. They thought it was some kind of plant disease. Rebecca felt sick. You watched them die? Vincent nodded. Gentleroot came to me for help. He thought human medical knowledge might be able to save his people. He trusted me completely, even as his own family was dying around him. Vincent's composure finally broke. Tears ran down his cheeks as he continued. I couldn't tell him that humans were the ones killing them. I couldn't explain that everything we had shared over the past 8 weeks had been a lie. So I held his hand while he died, and I let him believe that we had been friends. The room was completely silent except for Vincent's quiet crying. After a few minutes, he composed himself and continued. The cleanup phase was the worst part. We had to go through all their settlements and remove any trace that they had ever existed. Personal belongings, artwork, scientific records, even their bodies. Everything went into industrial furnaces. Dr. Park finally spoke. How many people were involved in the cover-up? The entire expedition crew, Vincent replied. About 200 people, but most of them didn't know the full truth until it was over. The Marines were told they were cleaning up after a natural disaster. The scientists were told they were removing contaminated materials. Vincent explained how the crew had been sworn to secrecy when they returned to Earth. They were given new identities, generous pensions, and stern warnings about what would happen if they ever talked about the mission. A few people tried to go public over the years, Vincent said. They ended up in psychiatric hospitals or had mysterious accidents. The message was clear: keep quiet or disappear. Antonio asked the question. Everyone was thinking, why are you talking now? Aren't you afraid of what might happen? Vincent smiled sadly. I'm 68 years old, and I've been carrying this guilt for almost 4 decades. I've tried to kill myself 3 times because I couldn't live with what I helped do to those innocent beings. He paused and looked around the room at the 3 scientists. But now I realize that staying silent isn't protecting anyone. It's just ensuring that the same thing will happen again the next time humans meet aliens. Maybe if people know the truth, they'll demand that things change. Vincent reached into his other pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. I kept detailed personal journals during the Silent Reach mission. Everything is in here. Names, dates, locations, and personal accounts of what really happened. It's evidence that the classified files Diana revealed are completely accurate. He handed the envelope to Dr. Park. Gentle Root died believing that humans and Viridians would be friends forever. The least I can do is make sure people know that he deserved better. They all deserve better. Vincent stood up to leave, but Rebecca stopped him. What do you want people to understand about what happened? Vincent thought for a moment. That the aliens we killed weren't monsters or threats. They were people just like us. They had families, dreams, and hopes for the future. And we destroyed all of that because we wanted. Captain Diana Rodriguez had been living with secrets for 23 years. She served in the Space Defense Corps for 15 years before moving to a desk job at the Colonial Archives. Most people thought she was just another retired military officer pushing papers. They had no idea what files she had access to, or what those files contained. Everything changed the morning she saw the news report about Dr. Rivera's archaeological discoveries. The reporter was talking about alien ruins found in the Kepler 442 system, evidence of a destroyed civilization. Diana's coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered on her kitchen floor. She knew that system. She had classified files about those expeditions locked away in the deepest vaults of the military archives. Files that were supposed to stay buried. Forever. Diana called in sick to work and spent the day pacing around her apartment. She had sworn an oath to protect classified information, but she had also sworn to protect humanity. Right now, those two oaths were pulling her in opposite directions. By evening, she had made her decision. She drove to her office at the Colonial Archives, using her security clearance to access the building after hours. Her hands were shaking as she entered her authorization codes into the restricted files system. The files she was looking for were classified at the highest levels. Project Clearfield, Project Silent Reach, and Project New Dawn. 3 names that meant nothing to most people. But Diana knew they were the real names for the mining expeditions to Kepler-442. She downloaded the files onto a secure drive. Her heart pounding with each document that transferred. If she was caught doing this, she would spend the rest of her life in a military prison. But if she didn't do it, the truth would stay buried while scientists like Dr. Rivera tried to piece together what really happened. The next morning, Diana contacted Dr. Park at the Deep Space Research Center. I have information about your archaeological discoveries, she said, but we need to meet somewhere private. 2 days later, Diana was sitting in a secure conference room with Dr. Park, Rebecca, and Antonio. The files she had brought painted a picture that was even worse than what the alien carvings had described. Project Clearfield was the first expedition to the Kepler 442 system. Diana began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. According to the official reports, it was a mining survey mission. But these classified files tell a different story. She opened the first document on her laptop screen. It was a mission briefing dated 3 months before the Clearfield expedition launched. The document outlined something called the Clean Slate Protocol. What's the Clean Slate Protocol? Rebecca asked. Diana took a deep breath. It's a military doctrine that was developed in the 2140s. The basic idea is that when humans discover alien life in a resource-rich area, we eliminate any potential territorial disputes by eliminating the aliens. The room fell silent. Antonio was staring at the document with disbelief. You're saying this was official policy? For certain types of expeditions, yes, Diana replied. The reasoning was that negotiations and territorial agreements would slow down resource extraction and create legal complications. The Clean Slate Protocol was considered more efficient. Dr. Park leaned forward. How many people knew about this? At the highest levels? Maybe a dozen military commanders and government officials. The expedition crews were told they were on standard mining missions. They only learned about potential alien contact when they arrived at their destinations. Diana opened another file, this one containing the real mission logs from Project Clearfield. The expedition commander, Colonel James Harrison, had documented everything in shocking detail. The first entry described the discovery of the Zephyrian settlements. Harrison had been surprised to find intelligent alien life, but he had followed his orders and initiated the Clean Slate Protocol. The logs detailed how the human forces had spent 2 weeks studying Zephyrian behavior and technology before making contact. "Listen to this," Diana read from Harrison's logs. Day 23, initiated. Formal contact with alien leadership. They appear peaceful and eager to establish friendly relations. Their mining technology is primitive, but their knowledge of local resources is extensive. Proceeding with Phase 2 of Clean Slate as planned, Rebecca felt sick. Phase 2? Diana scrolled down to find the definition. Phase 2 involved establishing trust and gathering intelligence about alien capabilities in population centers. The humans were supposed to pose as peaceful explorers while secretly mapping all alien settlements and defenses. The log showed that Harrison's team had spent 6 weeks pretending to be friendly neighbors. They had exchanged gifts, shared meals, and even learned basic Zephyrian language, all while secretly planning the complete destruction of the alien civilization. Phase 3 was the actual elimination, Diana continued. Harrison's logs describe how they arranged a peace ceremony where all Zephyrian leaders would gather in one location. Then they used orbital bombardment to destroy the ceremony site while simultaneously attacking all other settlements in the system. Antonio was reading over Diana's shoulder. This entry says they killed over 40,000 Zephyrians in the first day of attacks. And it gets worse, Diana said. Look at this directive from Earth Command. She opened another document that made everyone in the room gasp. The directive was clear and brutal. No alien survivors. No alien artifacts to remain intact. No evidence of pre-human civilization to be left discoverable. Full resource extraction authorized once cleanup is complete. Dr. Park was reading the document with growing horror. They didn't just kill the aliens. They tried to erase all proof they ever existed. Dinah nodded. That's exactly what they did. Harrison's final report states that they spent 3 months after the attacks, destroying every trace of Zephyrian civilization. Buildings were demolished, artifacts were melted down, and even burial sites were dug up and disposed of. Rebecca was thinking about the warning message she had discovered, but some of them escaped and sent that signal. Harrison mentions that. In his logs, Diana said, finding the relevant entry. Day 127. Detected unauthorized transmissions from outer system. Small group of aliens appears to have escaped initial cleansing operation. Recommendation: full system sweep to eliminate remaining targets. Did they find them? Antonio asked. Diana shook her head. Harrison's logs end abruptly after that entry. But there's a notation in the file that says the final phase of Clean Slate was completed successfully. No details about what that meant. Dr. Park was studying the mission timeline. The official reports say the Clearfield expedition was a 6-month mining operation, but these logs show they were there for almost 8 months. The extra time was for the cleanup, Diana explained. They had to make sure no evidence remained before filing their final reports. The official version claims they found rich mineral deposits but no signs of previous habitation. Diana opened the files for Project Silent Reach and New Dawn. Both expeditions had followed the same pattern. Human forces had discovered alien civilizations, implemented the Clean Slate Protocol, and filed false reports claiming successful mining operations with no alien contact. Silent Reach encountered a species called the Viridians, Diana read. They were botanical scientists who had been cultivating rare plants on a chain of asteroids. The humans wanted the asteroids for chemical mining. The Viridian files were even more disturbing than the Zephyrian records. The aliens had actually welcomed human contact because they thought the two species could work together. The Viridians had offered to share their botanical knowledge in exchange for human mining technology. Instead, the humans had used the Viridians' trust to poison their entire food supply. Within weeks, the entire Viridian population had died from what appeared to be a natural plague. The human mining operation had proceeded without any messy battles or destruction that might leave evidence. Project New Dawn was the worst of all, Diana said quietly. They found a species called the crystallines who lived inside hollow asteroids. The crystallines were artists and philosophers. They had created the most beautiful crystal sculptures throughout their asteroid homes. Antonio was afraid to ask, but he had to know what happened to them. The humans used industrial solvents to dissolve the crystal structures while the crystallines were still inside them, Diana read from the logs. The expedition commander noted that it was the most efficient method because it eliminated both the aliens and their habitat simultaneously. The room was dead quiet. Rebecca was crying silently, and Antonio looked like he was going to be sick. Dr. Park was staring at the table, unable to process what she was hearing. Diana closed the laptop. There were other expeditions too, but these three are the ones I could access. Each time the pattern was the same. Find aliens, pretend to be friendly, gather intelligence, then eliminate everything. How is this possible? Rebecca asked. How could our own government authorize genocide? Diana had been asking herself the same question for years. Because it was profitable. Each of these expeditions brought back resources worth trillions of dollars. The officials who authorized Clean Slate Protocol got rich, and the military commanders who carried it out got promoted. What about the crews? Antonio asked. Didn't anyone refuse to participate? Dr. Antonio Rivera had been digging in space rocks for 15 years, but he'd never been asked to investigate something like this. 3 weeks after Rebecca's discovery, his phone rang at 2 a.m. The voice on the other end was Dr. Lisa Park from the Deep Space Research Center. Antonio, we need your team to check out something unusual, she said. Can you get to the Kepler 442 system within the month? Antonio rubbed his eyes and sat up in bed. Lisa, that's a 6-week journey just to get there. What's so important that it can't wait? I can't explain over the phone. But if you find what we think is there, it could change everything we know about human space exploration. 2 days later, Antonio was sitting in a briefing room reading the translated alien message. His coffee mug sat forgotten as he read about warnings and genocide accusations. When he finished, he looked up at Rebecca, who was watching him nervously. You're telling me that someone out there thinks humans are galactic killers? He asked. Rebecca nodded. The signal came from the Kepler 442 system. That's why we need you to go there. If something really happened, there might be evidence. Antonio leaned back in his chair. He specialized in finding traces of ancient civilizations, usually on dead planets and asteroids. The idea that he might find evidence of recent alien life was both exciting and terrifying. What exactly am I looking for? He asked. Anything that proves this message is real, Dr. Park said. Ruins, artifacts, signs of conflict. Something that shows aliens were there when humans arrived. 3 weeks later, Antonio and his team were aboard the research ship Pioneer, heading toward the outer edges of the Kepler 442 system. The journey gave him plenty of time to study the official records of human expeditions to the area. According to the files, 3 mining operations had visited between 2151 and 2157. All were listed as successful mineral extraction missions. The reports mentioned rich asteroid belts and abundant rare metals. There was no mention of any life, intelligent or otherwise, but Antonio had learned to read between the lines in official reports. Some details didn't add up. Why did all 3 expeditions stay longer than planned? Why were some of the crew manifests classified? And why did 2 of the missions request additional military personnel halfway through their operations? When they reached the system, Antonio's team began scanning asteroids near the coordinates where the alien signal had originated. Most rocks showed nothing unusual, but on the 5th day, their sensors picked up something strange on a medium-sized Asteroid designated K442C. There's definitely artificial structure down there, said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the team's geology expert. Metal alloys that don't occur. Naturally, geometric patterns that look intentional. Antonio felt his heart racing. Take us down for a closer look. The asteroid's surface was mostly barren rock and ice, but their landing site revealed something extraordinary. Carved into the rock were symbols and markings that were clearly not human. The designs were geometric but organic-looking, like mathematical equations written by an artist. "My God," whispered Tom Bradley, the team's archaeologist. "This is definitely alien architecture." They set up their equipment and began documenting everything. The symbols covered an area about the size of a football field, carved deep into the asteroid's surface. Some looked like writing. Others resembled star maps or technical diagrams. Antonio's translation software began working on the symbols immediately. Unlike the radio signal Rebecca had found, these carvings were much easier to decode. It was like the aliens had wanted them to be understood. The first translated section made Antonio's blood run cold. Here lies the final message of the Zephyrian colony. May others learn from our fate. As they translated more sections, a horrible story began to emerge. The Zephyrians had been a peaceful species that lived on several asteroids in this system. They were miners, much like the humans who would later arrive. They had families, communities, and a rich culture based on mathematical harmony. The carvings described their first contact with humans in detail. According to the Zephyrian account, a human mining ship had discovered their main colony asteroid. The first meetings had gone well. Humans and Zephyrians had exchanged gifts and learned about each other's cultures, but then something went wrong. The Zephyrian records described how human attitudes changed after they discovered that the aliens were sitting on some of the richest mineral deposits in the galaxy. The humans had become aggressive, demanding mining rights to areas the Zephyrians considered sacred. When the Zephyrians refused, the humans had given them an ultimatum: leave the system or be removed by force. Antonio, read the translation with growing horror. The Zephyrians had tried to negotiate. They offered to share the mining rights, to work together, to find a compromise that would benefit both species. The humans had seemed to agree to negotiations, but according to the carvings, it had all been a trick. Listen to this. Antonio called his team over to read the next section. The humans came with many ships, saying they wanted to finalize the peace agreement. Our leaders gathered at the meeting point, bringing gifts and signing documents. The humans smiled and shook hands with our elders. Then their weapons fired. Tom stopped reading and looked up. They're saying humans massacred them during peace talks? Antonio nodded grimly and continued translating. The Zephyrian account described how human forces had simultaneously attacked all Zephyrian settlements in the system. The aliens had been caught completely off guard because they had trusted the peace negotiations. They gave us no time to surrender. Read another section. No chance to flee. No opportunity to explain or negotiate further. They showed no mercy to our young or our old. They wanted us gone completely. The most disturbing part was how systematic the attack had been. The Zephyrians described human forces methodically destroying every trace of alien civilization. Buildings were leveled, artifacts were melted down, and even Zephyrian bodies were disposed of in industrial furnaces. It wasn't just about taking our resources. Read one section. They wanted to erase all evidence that we had ever existed here. The final sections of the carving explained how a small group of Zephyrians had managed to escape to this hidden asteroid. They had used their last functioning equipment to send out the warning signal Rebecca had discovered. Then they had spent their remaining time carving this permanent record into the rock. We hope someone will find this message and learn the truth, the carving concluded. The humans are not evil by nature, but they become evil when they want something you have. They will appear friendly at first. They will offer to share and cooperate. But when they decide they want everything for themselves, they will take it. And they will make sure no one survives to tell a different story. Antonio sat down heavily on a nearby rock. His team stood around him in shocked silence. They were archaeologists and scientists, not soldiers or politicians. But here they were, staring at evidence that their own species had committed genocide. Jennifer was the first to speak. What if this is just their side of the story? What if the humans were defending themselves? Tom shook his head. Defending themselves against what? These records describe a peaceful mining species. And look at the timeline. The Zephyrians were here for centuries before humans arrived. Antonio was studying the star maps carved into the rock. They showed the positions of planets and asteroids throughout the system. Several locations were marked with Zephyrian symbols indicating settlements or mining operations. We need to check these other sites, he said. If the human reports were accurate, these areas should show signs of successful mining operations. If the Zephyrian account is true, we'll find evidence of destroyed alien settlements. Over the next week, Antonio's team visited 6 other locations marked on the Zephyrian star map. At each site, they found the same thing: traces of destroyed alien architecture mixed with evidence of intensive human mining operations. The pattern was unmistakable. Humans had indeed found a thriving alien civilization in this system. And then they had systematically destroyed it while extracting the mineral wealth the aliens had been mining for generations. At the last site they visited, Antonio made the most disturbing discovery yet. Buried under tons of mining debris, they found what appeared to be a mass grave. The remains were clearly not human, and the carbon dating suggested they died right around the time of the first human expedition to the system. There must be thousands of them here, Jennifer said quietly as they documented the site. Antonio was taking pictures when his translation software chimed. It had found more Zephyrian writing etched into the rocks near the gravesite. The message was short but heartbreaking. Here rest our families, our elders, our children. They died believing humans could be trusted. May their spirits find peace among the stars, and may others learn to run when the humans come with smiles and promises. That night, back on the Pioneer, Antonio sat in his quarters staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other alien species might be receiving the Zephyrian warning signal. They were learning that humans couldn't be trusted, that contact with Earth meant death and destruction. Antonio thought about his own children back on Earth. What kind of galaxy were they going to inherit? One where humans were known as the species that destroyed anyone who got in their way? Dr. Rebecca Torres had been staring at computer screens for 12 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, as she sat hunched over her workstation at the Deep Space Research Center in Colorado. Outside, snow was falling, but Rebecca barely noticed. Her entire world had shrunk down to the strange patterns dancing across her monitor. At first, it looked like background noise from space. You know how, when you tune an old radio and hear static? Space has its own version of that. Cosmic radiation, pulsar signals, random bursts of energy from dying stars. Rebecca's job was to filter through all this cosmic chatter, looking for anything unusual. Most days, she found nothing interesting. Today was different. The signal had been hiding in plain sight for weeks. Her computer program flagged it as routine. Cosmic radiation, but something felt wrong. Rebecca trusted her instincts. After years of listening to space, you develop a sixth sense about these things. She decided to dig deeper. She isolated the signal and ran it through every analysis program she could find. The first thing she noticed was the pattern. It wasn't random like natural cosmic noise. It repeated every few hours, like someone pressing the same button over and over again. That got her attention real quick. Rebecca spent the next 3 days barely sleeping. She ordered pizza to her office and set up a small cot in the corner. Her colleagues thought she was losing her mind, but she couldn't let this go. The signal was trying to tell her something, and she was determined to figure out what. On the 4th day, she made a breakthrough. The signal wasn't just repeating randomly, it had structure like a language. Rebecca felt her heart racing as she realized what she might be looking at. This could be proof that we're not alone in the universe. She called her supervisor, Dr. Michael Chun, at 3 in the morning. "Mike, you need to get down here right now," she said. her voice shaking with excitement. "I think I've found something incredible." Mike arrived 20 minutes later, still in his pajamas and winter coat. "This better be good, Rebecca." I was dead asleep. Rebecca showed him the patterns on her screen. "Look at this. It's not random. It's organized, structured. I think it's a message." Mike studied the data for a few minutes, his expression growing serious. "Have you tried running it through the translation protocols?" "That's what I've been doing for the past 6 hours," Rebecca said. "The computer keeps spitting out fragments, but they don't make complete sense yet." They worked together through the night, using every decoding program the research center had. The signal was incredibly complex, like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. But slowly, words started to emerge from the chaos. The first clear phrase made them. Both stopped breathing for a moment. "Warning to all who receive this message." Rebecca and Mike looked at each other. This wasn't a greeting from friendly neighbors. This sounded like a distress call. Over the next few hours, more fragments appeared. "Do not approach the third planet. They show no mercy. No survivors." To tell the story. Rebecca's excitement was turning into something else. Fear, maybe, or confusion. "Mike, what does this mean?" "Who is they?" Mike was quiet for a long time, staring at the screen. "I'm not sure I want to know," but Rebecca couldn't stop now. She was like a detective who had found the first clue to a mystery. She kept working, fine-tuning the translation programs, cross-referencing. The signal patterns with known languages and codes. The breakthrough came at dawn. The computer finally managed to piece together a longer message. "Warning to species 847 Delta and all others. The inhabitants of the third world from the yellow star are not what they seem. Do not attempt contact. Do not attempt negotiation. They give no second chances. They leave none alive to speak of what happened." Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. The third world from the yellow star. That was Earth. Someone out there was warning others about humans. "Mike," she whispered, "I think we're the bad guys in this story." Mike was reading the message over and over again. "This has to be a mistake. Maybe we're translating it wrong." But Rebecca knew they weren't wrong. The translation software was the most advanced on the planet. It had been used to decode ancient human languages and even theoretical alien communications. If it said the message was about Earth, then it was about Earth. She started digging into the signal's origin. Using the radio telescope's tracking data, she traced the broadcast back to its source. The signal was coming from a region of space about 40 light-years away, near a star system that humans had explored decades ago. "Mike, look at this," she said, pulling up star charts on another monitor. "The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. Didn't we send mining ships there in the 2150s? Mike checked the historical records. Yeah, 3 expeditions. All listed as successful mining operations. No mention of any alien contact. Rebecca felt her stomach drop. What if the records are wrong? What if something happened out there that nobody talks about? They spent the rest of the morning trying to decode more of the message. Each new fragment painted a darker picture. The aliens described humans as relentless hunters who eliminate all traces of contact. They warned other species to hide and never let them know you exist. Rebecca couldn't understand it. How could this be about humans? Sure, people could be violent sometimes, but this made it sound like humans were galactic monsters. It didn't make sense with everything she knew about human space exploration. By afternoon, word had spread through the research center. Other scientists gathered around Rebecca's workstation, reading the translated fragments with growing concern. Dr. Lisa Park, the center's director, arrived and immediately ordered the lab sealed. "Nobody talks about this outside this room," she said firmly. "Not until we understand what we're dealing with." Rebecca spent the next week working around the clock with a team of linguists and space historians. They managed to decode about 60% of the full message. It was like reading a horror story. Except the monsters were humans. The aliens described first contact scenarios where humans seemed friendly at first, but then turned violent without warning. They talked about entire alien settlements being wiped out with no survivors left to tell what really happened. The message painted humans as a species that saw any alien life as a threat to be eliminated. The most chilling part was the ending. We broadcast this warning with our last functioning transmitter. Our world is dying. The humans showed no mercy, even when we tried to surrender. Learn from our mistake. Do not trust them. Do not give them a chance to betray you. They will not give you a second chance. Rebecca sat back in her chair, exhausted and confused. Everything she thought she knew about human space exploration was crumbling. The official records talked about peaceful mining operations and scientific discoveries. There was no mention of alien contact, let alone alien genocide, but here was proof that something terrible had happened out there. Someone was so afraid of humans that they used their last moments to warn the entire galaxy about us. Rebecca looked around the lab at her colleagues. They all had the same expression of shock and disbelief. How could their own species be the villains in someone else's story? "What do we do now?" she asked Dr. Park. The director was quiet for a long time. "Now we find out if this message is telling the truth.